Hey guys, this is Yoda. This will be my guide to Cithril's Fall, which is, as of the beta, the very first dungeon you need to do to pass Contender and unlock the Adept difficulty. You have about 28 minutes to complete the dungeon. In this VOD, I'll be playing Helena, which is a tank, and we'll be going to this pull. In my opinion, this is probably about as big as you want to go. If everyone's experienced, you probably can pull the next pull. I was kind of like first timing this pull. Wasn't sure how everything was going to work out. You can like skip the golem if you're doing the next pull, but I figured I'd get him into the first pull. But we'll just talk about the mobs here as we pass through them, kind of the same way I do in WoW dungeons. So as we're running into the first pull, this pack features 2 Eldrin Recruits. They don't really do anything, they just melee the tank. This Stalker, which shoots the tank from afar, so it's kind of hard to group unless you LOS it. And it also jumps and does rapid fire. The rapid fire is always pointed at the tank, so ideally you're pointing that away from the group. 2 more recruits that don't do anything. And in this pull, there's also a Sentinel. So this Sentinel, by the way, is the reason I prefer to go right in this dungeon, especially in a pug scenario, which this kind of is. The Sentinel has a cast. I forget what it's called, but it puts a shield on something. Also, where is this Sentinel going, by the way? It's called Shattering Barrier. While this shield is on them, they tick for extra damage, and it also obviously is a shield that your group has to break through. So if you do not kick every Shattering Barrier, or interrupt every Shattering Barrier, then you're going to have issues. There, he like ran LOS and started casting for some reason, so I used my character's ability, Grand Melee, to taunt him through the wall. Very OP ability. Also, yeah, in this first pull, I'm basically just... Oh, by the way, the Golem, when he dies, explodes into these Ice Shardlings. That's why I had aggro here. Trying to aim the rapid fire away, kick the Sentinel, and that's basically it. You can like move from one rapid fire and then go here, as you saw I did, and aim them both away from the group. And just make sure you stay on top of the Sentinel interrupt in this pull. Obviously, you have multiple group members. Everyone, you could technically handle 3 Sentinels, but especially in a pug scenario, you may not want to have to deal with that with your pugs. So that's the first pull. Next, we're gonna move on, I guess. We run past all these shardlings and the golem, and we go straight to the corruptor. You can do a stop before this corruptor, but in my opinion, if there is no mob that needs to be interrupted, then you're kind of going slow in the dungeon. There's the only new mob in this area is the corruptor. We've got a few spellbound golems and ice shardlings. When the shardlings die, they put a debuff on you that slows and does a dot, and it stacks up. It's very similar to bursting from World of Warcraft Mythic Plus. It used to exist, doesn't really exist anymore. Generally, I would say if your healer is ready for it, you can probably handle it. If your healer is new to the game, then maybe don't do this big pull with all these shardlings. But there's not really much to heal in this pull other than that. There's these golems, which you already fought. They do the little swirlies on the ground, and they also explode into more shardlings. That's basically it. I really like these mobs. These are like free count. The Corruptor has 3 abilities. So this is the main mob you have to think about in this pull. It has Drain Life, which is the one you really want to interrupt. It basically heals itself while sucking health from your group members. And it also has another ability that just does a random bolt, so hopefully I kick this Drain Life. Yeah, someone interrupts the Drain Life. And this is the Ice Bolt. As you can see, we have this debuff, 11 stacks of the heal debuff, kind of ticking on our party. Up to 13 stacks, but our healer, it seems, was ready for it, so we... Okay, well, maybe not super ready. 2 people actually died, so maybe the pull was a bit spicy. We kind of bursted these very quickly all at the same time. But yeah, this Corruptor has Drain Life and Ice Bolt. The Ice Bolt just does damage to the tank. The main thing you need to consider with this is that ideally you're interrupting every cast, because I'm not mousing over this buff, but it heals for 25% of all damage it does, which is why you really want to interrupt every Ice Bolt and every Drain Life. Anyway, while we're waiting for the 2 people that died to run back, I'm just kind of hitting these golems. Once they get back, we will start the next pull, which is to get to the boss room. I like to do this route because basically if you see my ult, we're like at 67 spirit, and by the time we pull it, we'll have 100 spirit. I would definitely recommend only fighting one of these corruptors at a time. I'm kind of chaining here, mainly because I have this ability of Grand Melee, which means I can basically solo stop both of them on Drain Life. Like as soon as this one casts Drain Life, I use Grand Melee, and then I know this one's going to cast Drain Life next. If you're in a pug scenario, or you're not playing Helena, or not comfortable, definitely don't pull both at the same time, just pull one. And that's basically these two. Just interrupt drain life. This one is going to cast drain life. I target it, waiting for my stun. Hopefully an ally kicks it, and they do. But yeah, try generally. I would say don't pull both at the same time. Kill one and then chain the next. And then someone pulled the boss somehow, randomly. So we're gonna start the boss combat. This boss, by the way, is one of the hardest bosses in all of, like, mechanically, probably one of the harder bosses in all of Fellowship. Output wise, it's actually kind of easy. So he does spawn these little orbs. These orbs will chase around people like your range. And they also pulse damage, I believe. Don't run into them like I just did. Very bad idea. And he also does these circles around the ground that you need to soak. So these orbs, don't run into them. And the circle, you need to soak. So here I was rushing to the circle to soak it, and I ran into the orb on the way. Is what happened. And then I think someone blinks in here. Yeah, someone blinks in, and it gets soaked. Once you soak it, you get this debuff. You can see here on our healer. He has the debuff. This puts a dot on you. Also, if you soak, you get another debuff that says the next time you soak, you take 100% increased damage. So you don't want that. You do also drop this circle off when you soak. If you fail to soak, by the way, this circle becomes like massive and does like AoE group ticking damage that it can cause a wipe. So make sure you are soaking. The frontal mechanic, Shatter Strike, you want to aim at these balls. Otherwise, if the balls are alive, they're ticking on you and chasing your range around. You don't want that. Obviously, if the frontal hits anyone except the if it hits anyone, it does put a dot. Boom, you can see it put a dot on our healer here. If it hits multiple people, then multiple get dot. And I think the secondary hits are also like very high in damage, so you really want to avoid getting hit by those. For these soaks, you don't want the same person to soak twice in a row. You can see this circle appears, but our healer still has the debuff. If you soak with the debuff, you will take extra damage. Tanks can kind of do it with cooldowns because this boss doesn't really threaten tanks that much. It's the tank burden on this fight is more about positioning, but except you can just position the boss in the middle and aim the frontal wherever. So if you notice your group is not soaking, you can like soak extra circles that you're not supposed to have. There, I actually messed up. I was in the circle and then I pushed charge, and then that I thought it wouldn't like move me, but it actually did move me out of the circle, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Like I'm right here, the boss is right here, charges to the center of the hitbox, and I missed a soak. But anyway, this is what happens if you miss a soak. The circle becomes massive, and it is, I believe, ticking damage on us. Maybe it's not that much damage. Maybe our healer just overgeared, something like that. But yeah, you don't want to be missing the soaks. That's what happens if you miss. Oftentimes, we will probably wipe if you miss the soak like that. This time, our healer was a bit overgeared, so it was fine. Then I just keep going to the right. We'll see what I pass through here. Oops. Okay, going back in the video. By the way, in this dungeon, there is a lot of count, especially if you like take the path this way. If you just run through like one pack on a path to every boss, you will probably be over count. So try not to pull like extra mobs that are not in your way. I run past that and go straight to the campfire. Generally, as a rule, I would say in this game, you want to be pulling 2 packs at a time if possible. That was kind of poorly played, actually. I think I should have aimed the rapid fire like away and then gone to pull the extra pack, but whatever. Same mobs as before, Tundra Stalkers, they do the frontal, and Spellgolem Golems that explode into the Shardlings. We get the campfire here, and then we're going to go into the next area. This next area is significantly more difficult. If you notice, they have this skull over their head. That means they're tuned, I think, 1 to 2 levels higher than a +7, which is what this is. And the mobs near the last boss tend to have this buff. I still do 2 packs. There is a new mob here called the Blades of Cithrel, which have 3 abilities. So number 1 is Icebreaker. You can see he just picked, I believe, our healer here. He's going to jump and do knock up and AoE damage. It's a pretty dangerous ability. The next one is Slicing Blades, which is just the Whirlwind. You can interrupt any of these abilities, by the way, with like a AoECC, like Grand Melee would work, or a stun, or pull, whatever. We'll stop them from doing this. Obviously, playing melee while these are spinning around is going to be really annoying. In particular, these Blades of Cithril, when they're buffed, are super strong because they do a lot of unavoidable damage. Their tank damage is quite high from melees. The spin, obviously, is not that super avoidable as a tank because you don't want to like fully kite the pack too much. And the jump is also unavoidable. And then also, if that weren't enough, below 30, I believe they enrage. Yeah, you can see he just enraged and it increases his haste by 30%. So try not to pull too many of these Blades of Cithril if you can avoid it. Anyway, so I'm actually gonna avoid these two by going this way. Well, I tried to avoid them, and then I was like, wait, I can't avoid them. And I just pull up to the next campfire. In this pull, there is a new mob, which is the Scholar. This Scholar has 3 abilities, I think. Number 1 is the Orb, the same one from the first boss we saw. He makes an orb, and that orb chases people around. He also has a random bolt that just targets the tank. And he also has Rune of Detonation, which is his major ability. This rune, which he will cast soon, I think. Really? Yeah, this Rune of Detonation is his major ability. The actual circle, by the way, of the rune is misleading. This rune is hitting like everyone in the party, no matter where they are, even if you're standing over here, it's still hitting you. And it does massive damage. You really want to be interrupting that. We've added another Sentinel to the area. I think I pulled this because I had Grand Melee. So I knew we wouldn't run out, we wouldn't be like short on interrupts. Once the Sentinel dies, we move on. So here we're entering if you went right or left, by the way, at the start, this is where you would be. You start here. So I decide we're just going to run straight to the boss. I try to avoid the last Stalker. I'm not sure if it actually works out. Yeah, it doesn't work out. But in this pull, there's 2 Scholars. So generally, especially in early pugs, I would not expect people to have like an interrupt structure ready to interrupt every Arcane Strike. I would suggest not interrupting Arcane Strike at all and just be ready to interrupt Rune of Detonation. Having Rune of Detonation go off is basically the only way to actually lose this pull. That plus the little orbs flying around, if they hit people, then it's going to hurt. Boom, you can just see it just hit our mage there. All right, and then I pull this into the boss, which is kind of spicy. You can just kill it by itself, but I don't know. I was feeling strong in this dungeon, so I decided to do it. I also do have Grand Melee, so I can taunt these in. And there's only 1 Sentinel, so I just make sure I interrupt it and call it a day. This Stalker, by the way, got stuck outside, so he actually could only fight 3 mobs at a time. As for what the actual boss does, so he does this Cold-Blooded Twist, boom, boom, just, move around in a circle. He also drops these traps, and he puts this circle, just, don't stack on the person with it. So my suggestion is, as a tank, you actually should soak these traps when it's not doing the Cold-Blooded Twist, because one of the ways you can lose is if this trap is around during Cold-Blooded Twist, and you have nowhere to go except into the trap, then, you can die like that. So I suggest soaking these outside of the Cold-Blooded Twist as the tank, when possible. Arcane Volley is AoE damage on the group, I believe. It's dispellable, so if your healer's having trouble with one person, they can dispel that person and heal the others. And the boss also does spawn 3 mobs. Just a recruit, 2 recruits and a sentinel. You do need to interrupt the sentinel. Here I'm having some aggro issues. Make sure you hold up or save like an aggro ability for when the ads spawn. And this is the Betrayer's Arrow. Just don't stack on that person, and it's easy. And that's the boss. Bang. All right, after that, we head back to the middle. By the way, there is a lot of count at the end, so this is where you get all the count I was talking about. We do accidentally pull this. I don't think you can pass through the middle. I'm pretty sure you're forced to pick a pack. I don't know why I pulled this. I should have pulled the other pack, but yeah. We basically just walked incorrectly, I think. Here we're lagging a bit. This pull is actually quite difficult, by the way. There are many Blades of Cithril and they're buffed because they're near the middle. So I don't recommend doing this pack. I would recommend just pulling the pack I like Ninja pull, just play that solo and then pull this afterward. I think this was a mistake pulling this. As you can see, we're probably going to be quite overcount. And these two, unless you're over geared, I would definitely recommend playing it pack by pack, or at least kill off the casters and chain. There is the Corruptor who has Drain Life, and the Scholar with the, he has the Orb, and he has Rune of Detonation, and he also targets a tank with the Arcane Strike. Generally, I would say, other than Rune of Detonation, you can just let the Scholar's bolts go off. But you really don't want Drain Life to go off, and in this dungeon, obviously, we misplayed everything, so we're just letting everything go off. Don't do that. But I would say the highest priority is Rune of Detonation, and then Drain Life, and then Ice Bolt from Corruptor for interrupts, if you want to prioritize everything. Ideally, you would just have like 1 person assigned to each caster, and then your 3rd person with an interrupt would just back up. Here we're just letting everything go off, so people are dying. Unlucky. Move on to this pull. We're lagging. It's beta. Fortunate. There's a Corruptor and a Sentinel. The Sentinel, I would say, is at same priority as Drain Life. You cannot let Drain Life or the Sentinel go off, ideally. And yeah, all right, on to the last boss, Cithril himself. Herself, I'm not sure. So this boss has a few abilities, and they kind of combo with each other. So we'll go over them as we see them. So the first one is a tank frontal. This breath, when you, by the way, it's very important as a tank that you're looking at this timer, because when she targets you with the breath, I assume it's a she. When she targets you with the breath, you get slowed. You cannot. It's very hard to move. This debuff is a slow. So if the frontal is there, then it's like extremely hard to move it unless you're like Mako and you can dash. But that in itself would come with certain issues. So make sure you're pointing it away to start with, and you don't have to like, so your group doesn't move around you. This path to oblivion is a soak. You just have to be in it with everyone. Don't be in the explosion right after, as he just took damage. And she also does Maelstrom, which pulls everyone in. Just move out, move back out. And then there are some combos. So Draconic Frenzy is what happens at 50%. She gets 30% more haste. This breath is the frontal on the tank. Don't hit anyone. Make sure you're facing the correct way. And this is kind of a combo. It's Path to Oblivion into the Bloodhunter's Mark. By the way, we kind of pushed really fast because we had ults on pull. But Bloodhunter's Mark, basically, it picks two people, and she dashes to them and gives them a bleed. You don't want to stack with other people with this. Oftentimes, by the way, it'll be Maelstrom first and then this. Actually, it just happened. So she put out the dots. They're not applied yet, right? They're marked, and she's going to jump on them soon with Blood Hunt. So she pulls people, then you have to quickly get out, and then she jumps on them with Blood Hunt to apply the dot. Ideally, not stacking that. We did a pretty good job not stacking there. Here, I actually hit my healer with the frontal. This bleed is a pretty big heal check. This is kind of where you want to use your cooldowns along with the breath as a tank. And yeah, by the way, as the fight progresses, this room is getting smaller, so there is kind of an enrage on this fight. I would say right now I was a bit overgeared doing in the dungeon, so we never really ran into that issue. But yeah, this, if you're like undergeared doing it, then you will probably run into that, the enrage on this fight. So yeah, that is going to be my guide for Cithrel's Fall. Hopefully everyone learned something, and it makes it easier for you guys to progress into Adept. Thanks for watching. Peace out.